Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 40 Service Designers of the Apocalypse. This event is part of the London College of Communication Postgraduate Showcase, and this is the opening event for our service design series of events. In this event, you will get to hear from a lot of our students who will be talking in a relay about their major projects. So they will all be asking a question and answering a question of each other. Please feel free to explore the student work in the link in the chat. And in the link in the chat, you will also see a link to the other 8 of our events that are going on, as well as the rest of the London College of Communication Postgraduate Showcase. So before we get started, I will read you some of the house rules. This event is recorded and it will be made public on the LCC YouTube channel afterwards. By attending this live event, guests agree to their contributions being captured and used for this purpose. We encourage you to ask your questions into the Q&A box, and we will get to them during the designated Q&A part at the end. Our community guidelines, which we expect all participants in events to abide by, both presenters and attendees, have been posted in the chat. And please share your thoughts on the showcase and this event across social media by using the hashtags LCC Postgrad Shows and SD Apocalypse, which will also be posted in the chats. So, first of all, thank you for coming. I will introduce myself. My name is Silva Grimaldi. I'm the course leader for the MA Service Design. I've been working with this group of students for about 1.5 years now. And I would really like to welcome you to this event on behalf of the whole of the course team. I think it would be an understatement if I said that this has been a difficult year. We started off in a normal circumstance. We were teaching in the classroom. We were conducting field work. Students were working for their first project with AGK Lambeth. So they were exploring the area. They were going out and talking to people. They were doing co-design sessions. They were taking out market stalls to do workshops in different markets in South London. They were going to community groups, they were volunteering, they were attending festivals, they were taking every possible opportunity in order to work with the community. And most of this work was in person. And then March happened. And a lot of our students are international, and a lot of our students in March, rightfully so, chose to go back to their families and spend lockdown in different countries. So we had students in time zones that ranged from +8 to -8. You can imagine this was a logistical nightmare. All of our work is collaborative and project-based. And this also became something that we had to learn how to deal with in an online environment. So we went from learning in the studio, learning in the field, to learning primarily online and students communicating to each other online. When April came by, we decided that we had to put in a few extra projects in order to help the students to gain those skills that they were going to need for their final major projects, conducting these projects in a pandemic. So we had the opportunity to work with Camden Council. We worked with their COVID relief effort. And this helped the students to quickly develop online skills that would help them with their major projects. And we were really impressed that students took every single opportunities that they had to learn and create new service design methods that would help them to get through the year. And by this point, our students are masters of the Miro workshop and online working and online interviewing and collaborative sessions and relaying across time zones when they work in groups. So this has been really incredible to see. And at the time, back in April, it wasn't only the students that were learning how to do this, but everyone within the service design community was really learning how to transfer what we had always done, partly online, but mostly in person, to a fully online environment. So it was students, academics, research, and professionals that were all really struggling to get through this and understand how to do it. And it was really impressive to see how everyone was rallying together and helping each other. We had so many offers of help from many different places. And also it was really impressive to see how much the students were able to adapt, and how resilient they were. And this has made them a really special cohort. They've had to relearn how to work with stakeholders. They've had to relearn how to co-design and how to engage in workshops. And they had to create new methods for engagement and new methods for working in groups across both time zones and also seasons. And we want to thank everyone that rallied around and helped us to deliver this program. So not just the academics and the staff from London College of Communication, but also the guest lecturers who came and gave talks to the students, and the mentors that have been working with individual students throughout. And this has contributed so much to our program. And I also want to thank the students for their overwhelmingly positive outlook, for their skills, their attitude, their ability to embrace this as an opportunity for design. And you will see, if you look through the showcase and if you listen to what we're talking about today and in the other events, that a lot of the projects that the students have worked on have been influenced by the pandemic. And they have really seen this as an opportunity to reimagine what our world could and should look like post-COVID. So they've worked on services that build on empathy and kindness, and they have an overwhelmingly optimistic view. And this is really incredible to see. So today's event will be a relay. Each student will receive a question and will ask a question to the next student. And in this way, we will take you through a sort of collective design process. So you will start hearing about the initial research and project definition, and we will finish on final reflections and learnings about these projects. Throughout the time when you're hearing from the students, please feel free to post questions in the Q&A window. We will try and post the name of the student that is talking on the chat. And if you can remember it, please include it in the question if it's a question for a particular student. So without further ado, let's get started. I'll call on Katerina first. And Katerina, would you be able to tell me what research methods you used and why you picked those particular methods?
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Silvia, for the honor to be the first. Firstly, a bit about my project. It's a virtual life and career coaching for women that help them improve their lives and career through self-reflection with peer support and just for 15 minutes a day. You asked what methods I used for research and why. Well, I started my research under the lockdown restrictions, so I needed to pivot. I started from desk research and autoethnography. So I moved autoethnography to online and social media and other websites. Then I done deep interviews and interviews with experts, all in Zoom, of course. Then I tested services on women's career. And finally, when the lockdown restrictions were eased for a while, I used it as an opportunity to conduct a diary study with real physical diaries. So I really learned how to be very flexible and adaptive here. Jack, why did you choose to focus on this particular research area, and what methods did you use?
Oh, thank you, Kate. Thank you for the question. And my project is a mental health service for Chinese high school students and their family, and to build effective communication skills for them. And for the first part, why I choose this research area, because my project began at the lockdown period, and most of us have to stay at home and lost the face-to-face communication from each other, which made me think about the interpersonal relationship between the family members. And about the method I use, I will output a current user journey and based on my analysis from the interview. And also I will keep the journey map updating until I define my survey touch point. And like my user, the adult children, I need to understand how they feel when they communicate with parents after they leave home, so that I can find the real pain point and design how and where to run the service based on the last user journey map. And that's it. I'm going to ask Eva, how did you narrow down your problem area? Hi, Eva.
Hi, thank you for asking, Jack. My service concept is a local service information system that helps new residents to better integrate into local life. For me, the key points are emphasizing users, listen to their feedback, and keep testing your assumptions. And in my project, two questions are discussed. One is how to build a close neighborly relationship between local residents and new residents. Another one is how to help new residents to better integrate into local life. To be honest, I didn't clarify them in the beginning, but as I obtained more insights, I got deeper understanding of the user, and I found the current service gap. By then, I realized raised the first assumption and held a code design workshop to collect more feedbacks. And it helped challenge my initial assumption and support some insights at the beginning, which led me to work further on the right problems. So I think that's an essential step to clarify the problem space. Now I'm going to ask Pauline. Could you share with us how did you choose your target group and narrow down the target user?
Thanks for Eva's question. For my project, I designed mental health toolkits for medical interns to help them prevent the early symptom of the PTSD. But at the beginning of the project, my target group was healthy care workers because I found that under the influence of the COVID-19, healthy care workers were showing a lot of mental health symptoms. However, population of the healthy care workers was too large. Most of the symptoms were different for each person and were not due to the PTSD of the COVID-19. So I thought I should narrow down my user, and then I realized that there is a group of people who had been ignored and who are new to the profession and they don't have enough experience. And if they develop a symptom of the PTSD because of the COVID-19, and they will give up practicing the medicine later. And this is the reason I really want to have this group. And then I have a question for Lee. How was the target user identified and widened? Could you tell us about that?
Thank you for asking, Pauline. Yeah. My project is a service to demonstrate the benefits of electric vehicles as a more sustainable means of transport to university students in China to increase drive adoption in the next generation. For my targeted user, after identifying the problem, by combining interviews and insights from various sources, university students who have a high probability of buying a car in the next 5 years and powerful environmental awareness were identified as the target user, and university teachers and even enthusiasts at universities passionate about EVs were also used as bridges between the EV company and the university students. They could reach them more efficiently and have with a high level of trust. Now I want to ask Daria, who was your target user and how did you work with stakeholders in the research phase?
Yeah, hi there. Thank you very much, Lee, for your question and amazing work everyone did during the course. I am amazed still, even though I'm one of the students. So yeah, tell me a bit about my project. It is called Coffee Agent Learning Community, and it aims to rebalance the coffee value chain through farmers education. And to answer your question, Lee, the target user of my project were coffee farmers. And even if the virus outbreak didn't happen, the project was already quite challenging. Selected user group of coffee producers was mostly located on the other side of the world. I'm talking about countries such as Mexico, Colombia, and Brazil. And not only the distance made it difficult to reach out the audience, the project's research phase unfortunately clashed with farmers' harvesting season. And to be honest, it was quite hard to contact the producers directly. But the ecosystem approach, which I chose for my project, allowed me to highlight existing relationships and connections within the coffee industry. Therefore, coffee producers were explored through people who worked necessarily and directly with them, such as coffee traders, who sometimes came out to be their relatives. So the main thing, I guess, I learned is when exploring complex systems, do look at each element separately and each element involved, as it gives you access to unreachable actors or information. So yeah, that's all for me. Next question will be to Sherry. Sherry, tell us, what methods did you use to help you better understand your target audience?
Thank you, Daria. Thanks for asking. Well, my project established an easy-to-use airport service for old people to help them have a better experience in the airport when they travel alone. Well, I think joining the empathy map really helped me to understand my target user better. In addition to that, to get the same feelings as my target user, I put on an age simulation suit and became an old people to experience old people's journey of taking flight in the airport. And the suit really made my movements more laborious and sluggish, so I can experience different difficulties that old people may face at different stages, whatever in physically and emotionally. So I think this method also helped me to understand my target user better. Then I'm going to ask Scythe, could you share one interesting finding during your discovery phase?
Yes, Jerry, thank you. My project is about informing vaccination knowledge to people and help them to get vaccinated. So during my discovery phase, one interesting thing I found is that users are not honest sometimes. They don't know what they don't know. So for example, when I try to find their general awareness of vaccination, they seem very knowledgeable and have strong opinions. So I thought maybe there's no problem. And then list a few diseases and common myths about vaccination to test with them. I was shocked that there's many misunderstandings and lacking of knowledge is a big potential problem. So one lesson I learned from this experience is that you should always test with your users about your assumption, because you should not trust them all the time. I have a question to Ray. Did you encounter any unexpected problems during code discovery while using code discovery tools?
Well, thank you, Stas, for asking. Well, for my project, I designed a digital service for high school in China to better support the teachers during their daily working. So as for the unexpected problems, I remembered once during one code discovery workshop, I used a well-designed journey map with lots of varied details to conduct my research. And I invited the interviewees to fill in their emotional changes and their schedules into it. But during the process, I found they kept asking me, can I write here? Is this the right thing to do? Or what if I make a mistake? Then I realized that maybe they kind of regarded the tool as a product and didn't want to break it or even use it carefully. So next time I just got rid of all the useless decorations and also invited them to use stickers, which can be easily replaced or changed rather than directly writing information into the journey. Well, this way helped a lot, and it let me learn that do not over-design the tools, just make it easy and comfortable for the users. Well, that's my answer. Next, I'd like to ask Sophie, during your discovery stage, are there any useful methods that help you define the key insights?
Thanks for your question, Ray. So my project aims to explore and understand the existing eating problems among office workers and use social science thinking to help within the journey about developing a healthy eating habit. So yes, I conduct observation, desktop research, and interview in the early stage, such as interview with different types of office workers and experts. So to gain understanding and insights from different perspectives, one of the key findings from this activity was that the nutrition knowledge gap between office workers and nutritionists. So which helped me to move on the project and think about how to fill up the gap. So besides, I also used like user diary methods to gather user behaviors more deeply. So all of those methods helped me define the key insights for next step. So then I'm going to ask Ariba, could you tell us what key learning did you take away from the discover phase and what were your main insights?
Thank you, Sophie, for the question. So for my project, I designed a digital service for first-time mothers helping to connect with like-minded mothers around them to help them chat, share, and learn from real experiences and build connections. My biggest learning was definitely trusting the design process, the methodology Double Diamond, to it helped me to better understand why expecting mothers face difficulties to speak up about their struggles. The why throughout the journey helped me to define the insights, such as different culture norms and social expectations shape how people construct their lives and opinions. Women who gets pregnant and can go through mental health symptoms in the early stage. It's important to figure out which advice she wants to take, what she considers to be the right choice for her, and who she can trust, and what sources she wants to use. My next question will be to Teresa. How do you choose and narrow down your direction?
Hi, thanks for your question. My project is about Hidden Artland, is about how to bring the global artwork to our user and potentially influence their travel place after the pandemic. So at the beginning, when I chose the topic, I found many interesting cases in art and social innovation, and most of them are substantial economic. But in my case, because of COVID, so I'm thinking, how can I combine the current situation and how can I bring the potential to the future? So this is how I narrow down my direction. So next, I'm gonna head the question to Chuan. So can you tell me about what the method did you use to define your problem? Thanks.
And thank you, Teresa, for the question. First of all, my project is about the value action gap in sustainability development. So I created this service called Challenge, connect all the motivations and use the concept of challenge as a provocation to encourage more eco-friendly action. In my process, I find we tend to overlook the importance of the desk research. In my opinion, desk research shouldn't be just collect some data. Actually, there are so many psychological, economic, and sociological theories out there can help us to frame our problem. That's the reason I used trans-theoretical models to help me to define my user journey map, which I found is very useful. I guess when we are very encouraged to connect the different stakeholders, we shouldn't really forget about to connect the different knowledge and the theories in our process. And one of the lessons I learned is if you can stand on someone's shoulder, you don't need to build a ladder from scratch. And that's my answer. But my next question is going to be Xiaolin. Xiaolin, could you tell us how did you engage with your stakeholders?
Oh, great question, Tran. In my project, I designed a circular food community, which engages young people to connect with the community by promoting local produce and activities of food sustainability. And about the engagement of stakeholders, I started from desk research, as Tran emphasized. At the time, I was collecting existing products and services, mapping the incentives that young people respond to. And I also mapped out the organizations behind these good examples, and they became my potential partners. And from which I found a local food bank called PDT, and I reached out to them through their official account of WeChat. And because my vision and direction of the project are consistent with their current work, and I show them my research insights and personas, and the PDT people are professional in food science, nutrition, and business. So they offer valuable insights and knowledge to me. And this collaboration not only just helped me settle down the specific how my question, but also provided co-creation and testing opportunities for the concept development. And I became a volunteer of them, and their activities really gave me great chances to approach wider audience. That's to say, a good stakeholder really helps me engage with other stakeholders in my project. And that's my answer. Now I want to pass the question on to Lian. Lian, can you tell us how did you build your personas?
Thank you for asking, Charlene. Okay, my project is Whitebee, which helps junior job hunters who wants to gain career insights and connect with experienced key people in small and middle-sized companies in China. So regarding the question, how did I build my personas? Through the continuous research in the early stage, I interviewed with different stakeholders and observed the situation that I want to focus and recorded and analyzed people's pain points and needs, then summarize their characters. And after that, I grouped those interviewees with similar traits as one persona. And in my project, I created 3 personas. They are student graduated college students and proactive job hunters and SME managers. By summarizing their different needs and pain points, those personas I created help me to clearly explore the problems that the project needs to solve. And also they help me to discover more potential opportunities in the developed stage. So that is pretty much about it. Okay, I would like to ask Jay, how did you relate to your target group to get them more engaged with your project?
Thank you for asking, Lian. My project focuses on the mental health of left behind children in rural China. So in my case, actually it's quite special because my target group are rural children under 14. So in August 2020, 14, they field research of being a volunteer teacher at Chongyang Primary School in rural China made me better understand the real situation of my target group. The interesting parts of engage the target group quite a lot actually. For example, I did a questionnaire with over 17 children, shadowing with some of them, and I organized various co-design workshops, co-discovering activities actually. So to give some, one of an example, I carried out an activity named A Cup of Story. I brought some candy, hot chocolate, and hot tea, hoping to create an relaxing atmosphere, environment, and allow the children to open their hearts and share their own stories. I think what's more, sharing stories also help unite the class and enhance the whole class between the students. I think that's it. I would like to ask Lara, how did you engage users in conversation about such a sentence topic?
Yeah, thank you for your question, G, and also your workshop sounds amazing. I wish I'd been taken part in them. Yeah, so for my project, I worked with people experiencing food poverty to kind of reimagine what the traditional food bank could look like post-COVID-19 to better support dignity and control for the users. So yeah, as you mentioned, it was a topic that had to be approached with a lot of sensitivity. So one way I did this is that I didn't actually directly engage with users until I reached the define stage of my process. So when I was kind of narrowing down the question, and that was to ensure that I knew as much as I possibly could about the kinds of problems that these people were facing, and then kind of determine what methods and kind of questions would be appropriate to ask them. Another way is that during my 3 co-define workshops, I ensured that activities enable participants to share as much or as little personal experience as they were comfortable with. So for example, one of those activities was co-creating personas. Doing that, participants could draw from their own experience, but they didn't have to reference themselves if they didn't want to. And I found that this activity kind of acted as a conversation starter to gain more insight that I didn't have from the kind of previous stage of my project, but it also meant that the personas I ended up with were more firmly grounded in their context and avoided stereotyping because they came from the users themselves. And actually what happened was that most of the participants were actually really happy to share their personal experience and talked really openly during the session, but it was kind of good to have that as a backup for those users that weren't so comfortable kind of referring to themselves in the sessions. So now I'm going to ask a question to Maria. How did you manage working with 2 quite different user groups?
Thank you, Lau, for the question. My project was about unleashing creativity within organizations through a listening workshop, as I discovered that listening is one of the first barriers towards creativity. So regarding the question how I managed to work with two different user groups, managers and the workforce, I believe only through, well, the most important was through embracing empathy. From the manager's perspective, they usually have an incredible amount of work overload, so they're easy to reach and engage. Hence, it's fundamental to speak their language and understand their interests to deliver a meaningful service. On the other hand, for the workforce, not being listened to may be an embarrassing issue to raise up. Hence, empathy comes again in the first place in order to generate a safe environment for them to open up with you and collect meaningful insights. So empathy became a good friend in this project. Now I would like to ask Fon, how did you develop your concept?
Thank you for the question, Maria. So my project is called Meet Work. The service supports remote workers by encouraging them to connect nearby from online to offline in local working communities to help them stay motivated and boost their mental well-being. So in response to the design challenge, I did several iterations with different prototype methodologies, and I also applied design sprint framework to frame the time and process of each iteration. And some prototyping methodologies that I use are cognitive walkthrough, sketch diagram, and paper interfaces. Then I analyze what to keep from each iteration and turn them into final concept functions. Then I tested the final ideas, prioritizing user experience through lo-fi prototype, storyboard, and wireframe. And that's how I developed my concept. So for the next person, I would like to ask Jean, how did you test your concept?
Thank you for your question, Fon. So my project is travel platform providing getaway and pre-planned itineraries to discover and exchange travel ideas in the community. So how did I test the concept? Firstly, I had two concepts developed from ideation sessions. They are the concept about food and travel and trip planning. I use cards and rules of threes because the three basic steps help me simplify bundle ideas into three groups, which help participants to follow easily. And moreover, digital cards with pictures and graphic illustrations help demonstrate ideas in different contexts. What I learned from the process is that participants could recognize highlights and differences between the two concepts and effortlessly give feedback. So I have a question to Fancy. How do you test the service concepts and project feasibility?
Hi, thank you, Jean. My project, there is an online platform to increase the public awareness of guide dogs and to increase the engagement. And one thing I have to test is if it's possible for a non-professional to run the platform. So in order to test the concept and the feasibility, I chose to enter in the real industry. It helps me gaining experience and insights from my internship, but also testing it with the professional workers who are designing and running the platform. It was amazing. It helps me to think from a fresh perspective, but also build empathy. And I understand how difficult it is for a non-professional to run the platform. So I keep iterate the concept. I design the back ends, which helps the guide dog trainer to just simply drag and drop some materials and finish the platform operation. And this increased the feasibility of the project. And what I learned from this service concept iteration is we always need to think about the service provider and also the implementation. And my question for Tin is, how did you test the service concept and iterate it?
Hi, thank you, Fancy, for asking the question. So my project is about to design a sustainable ecosystem for the woolen market in Tongshan, China, to help them better face the challenge of the off-season problem. So how did I develop and iterate my service concept? After I defined the service concept, I organized several activities and interviews with different stakeholders to iterate my service concept and from different perspectives. And I also made some test activities with the target customers. And the tests become deeper and deeper. The first time I made some prototype and talk with the customers directly. And the second time I found an offline store and showing the prototype and introduce the concept with the customers during the purchase process, which allows me to observe the customer's reaction in a real situation. And the third time, I put all my prototype at that offline store for a week and got more feedback from the salesperson. So for me, I think this kind of co-design activity is very important for allowing the service concept to become more clear and make more sense. So I'm gonna ask Wen, could you share with us how did you test your service concept and how the test result affect your design?
Thank you, T. For my project, I designed a platform for secondary school students in China to study online in groups with independent learning guidance when they need to finish their schoolwork at home to reduce their study pressure. I got stuck during the develop stage because I have too many directions and ideas. So I tested my journey and used the prototypes, high-fi and low-fi prototype and wireframe with teachers and students. And I received very positive feedback for the online group meeting part from students. So I decided to put this feature in the center of my service. I also got feedback that students don't want to show their faces all the time during their study. So they want to keep more privacy during study. So I add a feature that they can turn off the camera and show a cartoon character study together on the screen. I feel that when the designer have too many directions and they got stuck, the way they can solve the problem, they can just test one again and again with users, and they can, after that, they can carry on with confidence. And my question for me, what are the learning from testing of your ideas?
Thank you, Wen. My project is a digital service that helps to facilitate the remote work together activities for people working from home. So the aims is to help people move more and increase the fun and informal interactions with their colleagues. And because of my concept involves both online and offline experience, and walking is the most familiar physical activities to people. So I realized that the testing's main point is to test out the key assumption that makes my service work. So the key assumption of my concept is that people can really enjoy the remote working activity. So I asked my participants to go out for a walk with me at the same time around our home. And before the walk, I asked about their motivation to take part in this kind of activity if it's organized by their workplace. And also their expectations of the experience. And after we finish the work, I asked some follow-up questions about their feelings about the real experience. And I found it's quite surprisingly, they are more like it than the expectations. So to me, the testing phase was quite interesting because it's a good simulation of the actual experience that I was trying to design. And I also learned that the testing format can be quite flexible. It really depends on what you are trying to design. Yeah, so that's my answer. And I got a question for Cassie. What's your biggest gain from the prototype testing?
Thank you for asking me. I designed a themed health event to help teenagers to build their body confidence. This project is in collaboration with middle and high school in China. You asked what is the biggest gain I got from my prototype testing. My answer is that I understand how to make this design more implementable under Chinese context. because my initial idea is a communication service between the young girls and their parents about body image. However, when I contact with a stakeholder who works as a psychological teacher in middle school in Wuhan, and after interaction with her and some educational practitioner, I realized my project would be more sustainable if it was school-based, as some school in China already has infrastructures like psychological class as an asset academic, especially in big city. So that's my answer. And let me choose who I gonna ask. I think, Donnie, may I ask how can you get the feedback from the user who got involved in your service? Donnie?
Thank you, Cassie. I think your service sounds really great. And my service is called Plante. I designed a 1-month period workshop to help kids understand the food cycle and cherish food through exploring plants. I prepared one envelope for every family involved in the workshop, which contained guidebook and several cards for reflection writing. There were 3 kinds of cards. Each of them had different functions. Yellow one was for evaluation of the content. Purple one was for feelings and experience response. And the orange one was for the expectation of the future of the service. Besides, I did interview with several parents and their kids after the workshop. I asked them their findings from it and what they want to explore at home so that they could bring what they learn at workshop to home and the community. And that's how it runs. And also, I have a question for Ruchika. What would you recommend to other people working on topics like menstruation that tend to be surrounded by shame and stigma?
Thank you for the question, Donnie. So I've designed a service that aims at empowering women in urban slums of India with knowledge and tools to manage their menstrual health by leveraging existing government, non-government, and societal networks. So to answer your question, personally, I think it's really important to anticipate the needs of the community and to maintain cultural sensitivity when you're working on a topic that's surrounded by shame and stigma. Respecting people's beliefs will make it easier for you to build trust, and it'll ensure that people are receptive to what you're talking about and even change in general. It was extremely challenging for me at first to talk about women, to get women to talk about their menstrual cycles. I had to then change my interview style and make it more conversational. So I learned that sharing your own stories and expressing sympathy and sometimes even comforting women helps because it'll make them more safe and relaxed. Unfortunately, a lot of women have had traumatic experiences related to their menstrual health. In the end, this taught me to be empathetic and to respect their privacy while giving them the space to speak. So I'd say it's quite a balancing act. And now I have a question for Prang. Prang, could you please tell us what you've learned and earned from your project so far?
Thank you, Ruchika, for the question. My project is to create sustainability into the food delivery system, which calls Grab Green. What I have learned and earned from my project, I would say that I have learned a lot through the design process, which is especially in design methodologies. To be honest, I was a graphic designer before, so I lack of the experience in curating, service blueprint, SWOT analysis, and also the business model canvas. Thus, this project taught me a lot while getting along through the process. I have learned a lot through the practice. I have gained life and learning experience from talking and interviewing with different people in the variety of the careers, which they have to be related to the sustainable and food delivery industry, which is really letting me to explore more of a wider perspective. One thing that I can't be missed is reflection. It is another essential thing that I would recommend others to do while working on the development. It gives you more than just a reflection, but the value of each part from your process and also yourself that you wouldn't be recommended as well. So this is all of my answers. Then, Laura, can you tell us what are the biggest learning you have gained from your research process?
Yes, thank you, Bram, for your question. So the general goal of my project was to find ways to identify and empower the stakeholders that are currently feeling powerless to activate change within the climate crisis. And yes, this is very wide. So I took a systemic approach to understand what was the change needed. So I mapped discourses, power dynamic, tools, and stakeholders driving change. And while doing that, I learned that mapping complexity and thinking systemically, it can feel very overwhelming. But it is fundamental to have a full picture of the issue you are trying to design for. I also realized that it's way easier to design for the linear economy as the incentives and tools are set up to do that. We are constantly pushed to create new service, products, and concepts rather than collaborating and connecting services, processes, and people. So I believe as designers, and this is my biggest learning, that we all need to start cultivating a circular mindset. I practice a lot and I hope I can put that into practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lara. That was the last one of our students in the relay. And as I was watching this happen on the screen and as we rehearsed it before, it really, I think, encapsulates and is a symbol of how students have been working together as a whole group throughout the whole year. And also the chat behind the scenes has been really amazing. If you saw us smiling at different points, it's because there were really nice, encouraging messages going through in the background. So that was really, really nice to see. Thank you to all our panelists. That was really interesting. We have a bunch of questions from the audience, which I will ask. When they're to a particular person, I'll say that particular person, or some of them are more open to more people. So feel free to jump in and answer the questions. So the first question that we have is for Eva, or anyone else who can relate to it. And the question is, I would like to know more about the importance of engaging with people to help you define the focus of your service. Thank you and well done, everyone.
Yeah, Sylvia, I think I can answer this question.
Great.
Okay. Okay. In my opinion, that in the discovery phase, we need feedback to support our findings and revise our assumptions all the time. So I think the best way to collect this feedback is having more conversation with your users. Listen to their attitudes, and sometimes you can involve multiple stakeholders to raise the discussion. So through engaging activities, we can create interactions and put participants into the real scenario so that we can observe their real behaviors, reactions, opinions, and so that we can get high quality insights. If you are interested to this question as well, that how could we collect high quality feedback? I think as service designers, we are quite good at design creative tools to trigger the conversation. And in my practice, the core design workshop was conducted to attract different groups of people because I would like to hear more from opinions from different perspectives and build real interaction with them. And as a result, it's very successful. About 40 people participated in the workshop and left many insightful suggestions. I hope this answer is helpful. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Eva. Did anyone else want to answer that question as well?
Hi, Sylvia. I can add 1 or 2 sentences from my experience. I guess the best way to really to engage with a stakeholder is build a trust. I guess doesn't matter in which ways. For example, you build a really funny face or even just a simple smile, or even give the feedback. Actually, you are building the trust. They trust you. You are not to misuse their information. You will not mispresent their what they said. Actually, they trust you. From your heart, you want to help them. I guess it's really key to for everyone as a service designer, because we are facilitator. You shouldn't really put too much biased view on the project. You should really listen to the people. I guess trust is really key. For example, I spent like 5 months working in the Oxfam, which is a charity shop which relate to my topic. I guess first month, I wouldn't really get too much insights until you start to build the trust. The manager are willing to talk with you more about how do they operate, what's the dark side behind them, or you call it. But I guess it's just a learning process, and you do a lot of things for them. You definitely will get feedback. Yeah, that's my
great. That's great.
I would add that.
So
nice.
I would add that sometimes you need to engage not only your interviewees, but also their surroundings. Like, for example, I did interviews with working mothers and their children were around, so I needed to make fun for them as well. So I used some red nose and some toys that I had on my table, luckily, and we were all in the same funny group, I would say.
That's great. Okay, should we move on to the next question? There's a question for Seth. And the question is, Seth's project is about vaccination and it's quite relevant and even more so now. Did you have the chance to explore COVID-19 vaccination? And are you working on that area? Or is anyone else working on that area?
I can answer. Unfortunately, I don't have the opportunity to connect with people who are working on the COVID vaccine because at the beginning of my project, the COVID vaccine is still in the air. We didn't know when we will have it. So I focused more on general vaccine like flu vaccine or travel vaccine because at the early stage of last year, the government encouraged people to take flu vaccine. But I found the problem of this vaccine is the same. For example, the public institution published the report of UK residents' acceptance of COVID vaccine. It shows young adults are twice unlikely to get COVID vaccine when it became available. And this is quite concerning because it's the key, they are the key part of preventing transmitted disease. And we can also see currently the COVID-19 vaccine, the information on the NHS website is very information dense. It's not easily to get answered by just reading on the website. And I think the communication is the very important part. For example, like many people, they just take the vaccine for granted. So many of them, they didn't really want to get it because they thought they're already very healthy. But when we think in other way, how the government to educate people about vaccination is also, they take it for granted. They didn't really put much effort on communication, these side effects, how it works. So yeah, so this is my finding. Actually, the relationship is two direction. Yes.
Great, that's great, Seth. And then there was a comment in the chat as well that was saying your findings and service concept will of course also apply to COVID-19 vaccination, which is great. Yeah. There's a question here for Ariba. I've seen that your service proposal works online. Now that we can meet face-to-face and our mental health is fragile, your project is a great initiative. Has it been implemented or are you planning to implement it?
Thank you for the question, Sylvia. Unfortunately, it hasn't been implemented. It's just an online service right now. But I think it will be a great idea to implement it so it can actually work and users can use it, which I think will be involving stakeholders that I worked with, such as healthcare workers, first-time mothers, and supporting mothers to work together and actually look into that and do a bit more research before actually as a future scope.
Great. And actually the next question follows on very nicely from this one. And I assume that the question is directed to Ruchika, Reba, G, Laura. But if anyone else wants to jump in as well to answer it, that's also fine. So the question is, a few of the panelists have chosen to work around sensitive and or often stigmatized issues. What kind of specific challenges did these projects involve? And how were these challenges navigated?
I can take that one first. Yep. I think the challenges for me might be quite different from the rest of the people who worked on sensitive topics. Because I was really lucky that everyone who participated were actually really open and kind of generous in the way that they inputted. But I did actually get to a stage in my project where I thought, oh, I haven't actually gathered enough, specific stories, emotional stories about people's personal food experience with food poverty. But I think I was being quite selfish in a way and thinking about the outcome of the project rather than actually the process. And I kind of realized that I could find out what I needed to find out and move the project forward without kind of collecting all of these really rich stories. And that's kind of why I brought participants into the define process to get them to kind of feed in without having to share loads of kind of personal, potentially quite harrowing stories.
Great.
I could add to that. So I think for me, I had to be very careful with what I was asking and how I was asking it, because a lot of women were not comfortable, and like so many of them were not used to being asked about their periods. So they were really confused that I was doing something like this. And I also reached out to doctors and primary healthcare clinics. And that's when they told me that you need to have a separate service, or you need to have a separate intervention for married women and unmarried women, because that's how the culture is in India, especially in those communities. So they said you have to be really respectful of that. Otherwise, nobody's going to be accepting this. So yeah, I'd say listen to what your audience says.
Great.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ariba.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Ariba.
Oh, sorry, I just had the screen just froze. I can definitely relate to Ruchika and Laura as well in terms of how important it is connecting to the users when you get to know them about the journeys and finding insights, because it is quite really a stigmatized topic. So I quite faced a few challenges, which is definitely was finding people, the first-time mothers and mothers who are caring for an infant, who are also willing to talk about the struggles related to anxiety, worries, and depression. Also because also the second challenge was building a conversation with the participants by creating a safe environment where they would feel comfortable to talk to me. I had quite a few challenges to do this. So the best way I found was by conducting the interview face-to-face, online, on the phone, rather in groups. So the thinking behind this was that each woman's experience of pregnancy or afterbirth is completely different. I did not want the participants to feel guilty in any way of relating from other participants' shared information. So I realized how important it is to build a trust relationship and emphasize listening as a main tool. And it was really rewarding.
That's great, thank you. We had a comment from Hannah as well, saying that she agrees with Ruchika that cultural appropriateness needs to be built into a service design model for it to be sustainable. Did anyone else want to jump in on that answer?
Yes, I can share mine. So for my project, I did 14 days of field research. For me, to do some project like this, you sensitive topic, so you need to really feel the environment so that you can come up the most practical solution. So I think the experience of getting along with the children or whatever the target group makes me better understand the real problem of them. I think another thing is you need to treat everything with a sincere heart as always. When thinking about the time I spent with the children, I went being very afraid of and cautious at the beginning, and gradually open my heart and patiently listen to every children's thoughts, and from being not really used to the poor accommodation and the living condition, in the rural areas, but to play, just have fun with them and do some interesting activities with them. So I want to say, instead of obtaining knowledge from books or online things, it's really, really necessary to get really close to it and just feel it in reality. Yeah, that's my answer. Thank you.
That's great, thank you. We have a follow-up question as well for Ruchika and Ariba. If you were a man, do you think your project would have had the same journey or outcome?
No, because I wish that I had more men that stepped up and I could interview them. But and we'd obviously want for men to be more comfortable with this entire journey. But with the audience, I felt like there was a lot of resistance. So I'm not sure if women would be comfortable talking to men, especially the audience that I was interviewing with. So not that men can't be good designers or that they can't empathize. It's just that culturally it's a bit difficult with the audience.
I have a kind of a similar opinion as Ruchika. As a woman to a woman, you can, especially if it's talking about very sensitive issue, and pregnancy as well, because men don't really experience pregnancy. So it will be quite a different journey, and it would be hard to relate. Well, as a woman, you can relate to some extent to the different journeys, and which helps to understand the other person well, and you can empathize with them. So I think will let me know as well.
That's great. Thank you. The next question is for Fawn, Jean, and Fancy. And my questions keep jumping up and down, sorry. So Fawn, Jean, and Fancy, and others that have talked about prototyping. I would like to hear more about why and how you prototype and test a concept with participants. And if anyone has any experience of doing this online. So how and why you prototype a test concept with participants, and how you do this specifically online. Yes.
I'd like to answer this question because I talk about prototyping. For me, the reason we prototype is that we designers may have an image of the service or concept, but we don't know if it matches the real needs of users. On the other side, users know what service is right or wrong for them, but their thoughts are too abstract and they may feel hard to describe the concept. So test the prototype will be a brilliant way to see if the service and needs really match in a good way. And I conduct my test fully online. So I show the storyboard and some low-fi prototype and wireframe with my stakeholders. For teenagers, I found the online way, if there are too many participants in a workshop or activity, they may not be able to get a chance to speak their feelings. So they would like, I found if I keep the participants in 2 or 3, they will have more chance to speak freely. And that's what I gained from the online test.
Yeah, I think I would love to share my experience about that. So firstly, why I need a prototype, because I'm keeping asking myself who is a provider, who is a service provider, and do they have the ability to do that? And if it's possible for, like in specific case, just like my project, do they have the ability to, for a non-professional to run a platform? And there is a very interesting things that in the beginning of the project, I'm thinking like I am the service provider, but gradually I realized like when we're doing the prototype, we're better understanding like how the stakeholders better playing their roles and take their responsibilities and support each other and also benefits from that. So and for the how I doing the prototype. So during the COVID-19, I made some digital low fidelities. And I sent to the different stakeholders, and I made a very short questionnaire, and they can just tick the box and I will get the feedback.
That's great.
Yeah, I could add some experience to that. So our prototype and test is quite tricky because my service is actually in Thailand and we are not able to travel as we used to do. What I did is creating a frame or a template mockup for the users to fill in their pictures and their trip from their stories. Like they're telling their impressive stories to me and I fill in for them. Yeah, that's from my side.
Sylvia, I would like to add a little bit. So I was incredibly lucky because one of my tutors, Lara Salina, connected me with 2 professors that were interested in developing circular mindset. And actually what we did was to create a workshop for their students to test if actually the tool will help them to think circular or to develop identifying systemic issues and for their ideas to solve them. And that was pretty cool. So actually I did two, one here in the UK and then another one in Colombia. And I recorded the session and I was able to notice, okay, which tools people are not engaging. Also, I think like the most important thing when developing toolkits is to test all your ideas and do it multiple times and see how people react with all of those ideas, and that will help you to narrow down. Because if you choose, oh, this is the specific exercise that I like, then it's your bias talking instead of the users deciding what is useful or not. So I test all of them and I did like 3 workshops. And also with doing toolkits, like if you have identified that your toolkit is going to work for 40 people or 10 people, try to test with that amount of people to see the dynamics, because the dynamic change dramatically. And that helped me to make sure that if a teacher would like to start implementing this toolkit or using this toolkit in a classroom for 30 people, it will work.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Fawn, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I can share my experience of like testing and developing the concept. So like, I think everyone has experienced this. Like when you come up with the new ideas of your concept, you think like, this is the best idea so far. And to validate it, you have to taste it with the users, whether it works or not, whether you should take this service like forward or not. So I tested like several ideas with the users, and then I analyze like what do I have to keep, and then I combine it as like one service. And I also have an experience of doing like prototyping online as well, because like we are like in the lockdown. So, but I think like Mural or Miro, like online collaboration is so good, like so useful comparing to like prototyping that in like physical way, because it's much easier when you walk through your service or the whole flow of your service. I think like it's much better comparing to like the physical one. And I also like did like wireframe and prototyping on like application, and then send a link to the users and let them taste and get me like the feedback so that I can develop like my service further. Yeah.
I would add a bit about Miro and Mural. I did my part of my prototyping also there, and for me it was quite challenging to have a balance between create something really complex in Miro and make people learn how to use that. So it seems not good. So I did very simple prototype for people, but I kind of created interactivity by myself, like, oh, you feel that, now you can see new screen, or now you see that it changes to another picture. So it's like combining digital tools with yourself.
That's great. So you were running the interactivity live.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I want to add one. Yeah. Oh, I want to add one thing about this question. This question mentioned about test the concept with participants, but I want to say that it is also very important to test with other people, like the partner organization, before you put your prototype to the users, to the participants. Like in my project, I designed a prototype of a workshop toolkit, and I need to, before the user use it, and I need to test it with the organization who will like hold the workshop later. So in this testing period, then I use online tool, a tool similar to Miro, and I built a very simple and an online prototype to test it first, and they gave me a lot of feedback on it, and I iterate on it. Then I design the toolkit in real life, in a physical way. So I think it is also very important to test it before you test with users. Not just with the partners, like you can test with your classmates, with your other designers, or anyone. You can quickly do it. Yeah.
Yes, that's great that you mentioned that, actually, that you're not only testing your concept, but you're also testing the methods that you're using to test your concept,
Yes.
which is
Yeah.
why testing it with friends or classmates or anyone else beforehand is really useful. Let's
Yes.
move on to the next question, unless Laura, you wanted to
Just a
answer?
little thing. Especially when you are designing toolkits, you don't have anything that is fully ready. So you are literally designing your service while you are testing it. So I think it's key to not be afraid. Just test whatever your ideas are. It doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be perfect. Let the person and the participants and the entire ecosystem, and Charlene said, to experiment with it. And that will be your design, and that is key. Just go there, don't be afraid, test it, and make it simple.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, let's move on to the next question. The question starts with, "This is great, well done." And this is a question to anyone. How long did it take you to react and put in place new approaches to adapt your project into the current COVID conditions and achieve your academic goals?
I think I can go for a bit. Yeah, great question. Thank you very much, Alvaro, and thanks, Sylvia, for speaking it out. Yeah, so I think with the whole situation where we basically shifted from working offline to working online, we needed to adapt really fast and really quick, and that's what we did. You know, we had no any other options, and I think it worked great because obviously the time goes on and everything evolves as well as working ways. We create our own toolkits, we create our own prototype testing material, and this is great, and we really practice to be adaptive quite well, I think, throughout the year. And to answer the question a tiny bit more, I think that here, yes, we've been creating new tools, we've been reacting really fast. But I think for me personally, one thing that really helped me, you basically turn on your search engine in your brain, and you start to think about any way possible to reach the audience, to test, you know, so your brain starts to work in I don't know, extra speed. And I actually wanted to for a long time already, I wanted to thank Laura for connecting me with Colombian farmers, because I think I would never get a chance to meet any Colombian farmer, coffee growing farmer, who is very far away from me. And it was just amazing because then he connected me to two others. So you see how the system works. You need to really search everywhere, or if you shout out loud, "I need help," the help will come. Because Laura basically came to me and she said, "Oh, you know what? You're doing something with coffee. Well, I have one friend." And then, you know, the system works. I don't know how come, but and then you think of other things, online things. So attending different YouTube live events concerning coffee, you know, then what else? I'm just trying to think what I did, you know, looking through any people who work in the coffee industry, even though they might not be connected to farmers, people such as, for example, in the coffee world, you have baristas who actually prepare the coffee for the customers. I'm sure you've seen them once a day when there was no COVID and no coffee shop was closed, but still, and he doesn't really necessarily connect it to the coffee farmer, but his friend might be. And you need to ask, you know, be open to any possibility. And that's me giving suggestions already, but still, I think it's good to be open, and it's good to ask for help from whomever. And I hope I answered your question. Yeah, that's all from me. Thanks a lot.
Yes, Sylvia, I would like to add a little bit more.
Yep.
Like, so also, like, the stories are out there. Like, of course, the ideal situation is that you can talk and interview your target user, right? But the stories are out there. Like, if you listen, like, videos, if you go to forums, you are gonna find people telling their stories, like even in Instagram and Facebook. So it's just an evolution of where can I find those stories now? But in online environments, people are very keen to post, "I think this, I believe this." If you attend events, as Daria said, you are gonna find the information there. So it's a matter of observing in a different way and just experimenting and trying to find those stories in unusual places.
That's great. There's a few follow-up comments on the chat. I won't read them all because there's quite a lot in there. I'll move on to the next question. We can only take 2 more questions. So I'll ask the next question. Has anyone been aware of any personal biases impacting on their work? And if so, how did they deal with that situation?
Actually, I can answer this question. I hope it's helpful. Like for my project is about to build a family effective communication skill for the high school student. And for my users, for example, some parents, they don't really like to talk about their conflict in their family. So they don't want to tell the truth to you. So the first thing I think the designer need to do is design. You need to know what your service can bring, what value your service can bring for the user, and what's the value your service can bring for the stakeholders. And my key stakeholders, hey, she give me good tips, and she tell me you can tell to the family, the parents, your service mind if you can build an effective communication habit for them. Your child, the academic performance might be improved. But actually, there's a good family environment actually will improve the high school student academic performance. So I think just like Chan said, we need to build a trust and like be a friend with your user and your stakeholder. I hope my answer is helpful. Thank you.
That's great. Does anyone else want to answer that question?
Yes, I would like to add to Jack. So for me, it happened that at the beginning, while I was interviewing about creativity, it usually like pop up organizational culture. And I had a strong mental bias towards that. And as Fon said before as well, you get like running towards a solution and that gets in your head and it's really hard to remove it. So it took me a while, and well, my tutor also helped me to see that listening was a real and relevant problem. So I would recommend people when starting a new project, maybe to acknowledge, like before starting, what do you think, like the first solutions that come up to your mind, or what are you being like stuck with? So write it down, acknowledge that, and then start your project with a blank mind, so you can absorb more information.
That's a great tip, Maria.
Hi, Sylvia. I can quickly add some as well. So I guess one of the bias I've been seeing in my project is, because my project is about sustainability, even for this very, I guess most of the people agree with the importance of the sustainability, but how to tackle with it is quite different from different people's opinions. In my survey, I found like half think it's government's responsibility, then probably half think it's the individual, and there's left a small portion think it's individuals' responsibility. So then you can say people, how do they deal with the sustainability issue in their life? Some people just say, oh, it's not my job because it's government, then I shouldn't do it. Then someone said, no, you should do it because as an individual, we contribute a lot of things. So in that sense, at the beginning, probably I tend to agree with, oh, maybe it's government. When you read a lot of books, say, oh, it's government issue. But realize people have their own understanding and their own ways to come up with their views. I guess nothing is right or wrong in the end. Actually, you have to embrace those bias. And sometimes the bias, I wouldn't call it bias, probably it's different views on some topics. You just need to understand how did they come up with this. Actually, those bias can be a very valuable input to your service. It will make your service more dynamic, to become more inclusive for anyone. So I guess that's we shouldn't really think that's bad thing. Should really think that's good thing, and it's good opportunities for us to be more inclusive, I guess. Yeah,
that's great. There's a question in the chat that I think has already been answered already, which was any challenges when reaching out to organizations or companies to collaborate with. So I think I will skip to our last question, which I think sums up really well. Do you think any of the research development methods you've developed due to the lockdown constraints were better than what you might have otherwise done in normal times? And if so, in what way?
I think I could answer that.
Yeah.
Like I did interviews via Zoom, and I think if it wasn't the pandemic, I would go to some offices or shops, I don't know, and speak with women there. And here I could see that home environment has great impact on their life and their career as well. So they need to manage with childcare all the time, even if they work from home. And it impacts my solution as a result. So it's very different from personal in that case.
That's great, yes. Does anyone else want to jump in on that one? So did any of the research or development methods that you've developed because of lockdown constraints turn out to be better than what you might have otherwise done in a normal time?
I did like a cultural props on Instagram story. And I think it works better than like the physical one. So I just illustrating the simple drawing, and then I send the picture to the remote workers and ask them to like fill in the blank by using GIF or text about like the physical or touch point that they have during like working from home. And I think it makes more like engaging and also like spreading this thing to like others, because like I asked them to tag the colleagues as well. So I think this one works better than like the physical one. Yeah.
I want to add something as well. Great. So I think for me, in terms of better, what it's better, I think the fact that I was looking to create a circular mindset, like I want to help people to develop a circular mindset. How can I do that? And I was focused on this idea that not everything should come from the global north. And I was in the UK designing and with my target users from the UK. And I was like, I'm from Colombia, I need to get more perspective. So the fact that everything was online helped me to make sure that I was aware of how can people perceive my service from different point of views. So one portion of the service actually is how to help entrepreneurs to get scientific knowledge that will help them to develop a business around organic waste. And the toolkit is an addition to that. And one thing that I didn't think about it was, why scientific knowledge? It should be also indigenous knowledge. And literally my bias is just going towards scientific knowledge, and that's it. That's the only thing that needs. But if you think about it, indigenous people have been doing and reusing organic waste and even all type of materials in different ways. There is no waste in their communities. So I thought like having access to that, because it was online, having access to experts, I don't think I would have been able to get this perspective if I would have been researching in the usual times.
That's great. Thank you.
I would also like to add something, because my project is about secondary students, the remote study. So the lockdown caused by COVID make this scenario happens, that people need to stay at home, work at home, study from home. So it creates a chance for me to talk about this experience. And because especially in China, students, they have a lockdown, then they come back to school. So I can make a better comparison of the different situation while they were at home and they are at school. So I can get more insights from this contract. I think it also it benefits me in this way. Another thing is I need to get approached to teenagers. So if I get in touch with them in real life, it's maybe cause some risk, and the parents, they may not trust me. But if I get approached to them by online, and the parents, they can also sell me and they can trust me more. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. So I'm going to make my closing remarks. I want to thank the audience and the panelists for today. You've all been brilliant. The students have really exceeded themselves. And there's been some really amazing questions and comments from the audience. I also want to thank the massive efforts that happens behind the scenes to put together the showcase and the events. So I want to thank the events team, the exhibition team, the AV team, the students who have been working for the past 2 weeks just after handing in their major projects relentlessly, and the course team, of course, and in particular Marion, who have been really helping the students behind the scenes to put everything together. So thank you very much. This event was part of the London College of Communication Postgraduate Showcase. And as part of that, there are events and exhibitions for all the courses within design, media, and screen. Yes, we need to applaud. Sorry, let's applaud. And if you want to browse the work or sign up to any of the other events that we're having in this series, we have 7 more service design events that will be by theme, as well as a closing event in which you'll get to talk to students individually. Musa will be posting the links in the chat right now. And thank you very much for taking part. This session is now closed. We'll have a recording on YouTube. Thank you.
Everyone.